Your puppy sounds happy.
She was in the bathroom. I heard her chug a bunch of water. That is damn good water. I don't know where she got it. What? I texted your dad about it and asked him, and he was like, I've never heard something that positive about water. I said, no, what do you mean? Like, no, I don't know where she got it. Today, she's got her this morning, getting ready for school. She said she was going to do something. That would be damn evil. What? I don't know where she's getting this. Her kindergarten friend? I am getting ready to run a webinar. So I already set him up for a little while. The webinar could all be that I gotta log into that. Or you can just take them outside out back. Or look around. But I have to. This will be recorded. So go ahead and take a look downstairs. So does she understand that you start practice over the holidays? But now I got a new case, which is better. She's not broken. In the mirror, in the bathroom, me and Ollie said, you notice how mirrors dad. All right, you boys have to go. Okay. You can have a CTL though. Okay, seriously, hurry. I've got people logged in already. I have to turn it on.
Can you hear me? I can hear you. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Gulen. I'm the Director of Curriculum, Professional Development, and Digital Initiatives for the ITEEA STEM Center for Teaching and Learning. We're so glad to have you with us today, and thank you for your participation. Before we get started, we'd like to provide a few helpful hints for making this a productive webinar for everyone. During this session, if you could please mute your phone or computer microphone, and it defaulted to the muted setting, so you don't have to change anything unless you've unmuted yourself. And you can do this by clicking on the microphone symbol to the right of your name, and that'll just keep down all the ambient noise. If you have a concern or a technical issue today, please use the chat function here in WebEx, or you can send an email to iteea@iteea.org. If you would like to make the screen larger or smaller, use the plus or minus symbol at the top center of the screen. And to make it full screen, use the diagonal double arrow. For questions for our presenter, you can submit a chat comment. That's the easiest way to do it. And Katie wasn't able to be on for the full presentation today, so that would not be the way to reach us by emailing Katie De La Paz, which is the email address you see here. So if you just go down to the chat box and send the chat out to everyone, then that would be the best way to ask your question. And the questions will be addressed toward the end of the session in the order that they're received, and that'll be during the Q&A portion of the webinar. Please note that there will be a slight break in the voice feed in between each transition. So today our trainer is Engineering by Design National Teacher Effectiveness Coach, Daniel Kelly. Dan is an instructor at North Carolina State University while finishing his doctorate in technology education. Prior to this, he was a technology and engineering teacher in North Carolina. We're very pleased to have Dan with us in this session on teaching engineering by design, foundations of technology. So with that, let me pull out of here and I will hand it over to Dan.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. Jen, can you confirm?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, how do I share my screen? I've never used the Cisco thing here. Oh, there we go.
You got it?
I think I figured it out here.
Yes, there you are.
There. Excellent. Thanks again, everybody, for coming here, and thanks to ITEEA for having me do this. Some of you I know, some of you I don't. I'm glad to be doing this today, and I put together hopefully a webinar that will give you some information that's useful to you in the classroom, and then I have some questions that were given to me before, so I'm going to try to address those at the end, as well as anything you have. I can't see the chat, so I'll have to scroll back through that once we're through with my little piece here, and we'll go from there. So the big idea for today is to provide you, the engineering by design teachers, and to facilitate a discussion about how engineering by design, us, can provide the best possible materials and experience for you and your students. So we're here to support you. We're here to try and facilitate the best possible curriculum and support to you. So if you have any concerns, questions, issues, please let us know so that we can incorporate them as we continually improve our materials and courses. So before we get to what I want to talk about today, I want to talk about one of the questions that was asked, which is about setting up classes, and this has come up a few times. And the first thing I want to point you to is it's on ITEEA's site. The link is here, but if you Google EbD Buzz resources, this page should be the first thing that pops up. But I'm going to go to it now and kind of show you what's there, if it works here. So it's this page here, which is on the website. And if you scroll down, you'll see engineering by design, you'll have overview samples, but if you go to EbD Buzz resources specifically, you'll see some resources that are specific to the program. There it is. And the one for this particular one, there's a great video on setting up classes and groups, and if you it walks you right through how to create these classes, how to sort them, how to add your students to them. I'm going to walk you through a part of it because some of my access is not the same as yours, so I'm a little bit more limited in what I can show you, but you'll get the IDEA login instructions. There's quite a bit of information here that should be a good first resource for you to go to, but you're always welcome to contact any of us, and you know, I'm always happy to get you going if you're having a hard time. So if you just click on setting up classes and groups, you'll go to a YouTube video that will walk you through it, but I'm going to show you directly in Buzz myself because, like I said, it has come up a couple of times. So I'm in this class. It's not a real class, so that's why I'm a little bit limited here. But the first thing you want to do is once you're in this class is go over to the people icon and button here and just click on it. And the first thing it's going to pop up, or it usually does for me. Oh, sorry, this will pop up here, and then you'll have your students listed. If you go to groups, you get this pop-up, generate groups. This is not to set up a class for this particular pop-up, so the first thing you want to do is close the pop-up. And I've already set up one. I wanted to make sure it worked, but you'll go to new group set, and that's what we're calling the classes here. So I set up period 1 already. I'll do another one here for period 2. You can name it, whatever works for you, and all you do is hit save. And now I'll have my 2 periods. If you watch the video, it walks you through exactly how to assign the students to each particular class and how to filter the results by course. But it's pretty intuitive once you get past this step. Everything should be pretty easy. But like I said, if you have any questions and the video doesn't quite get you there, please let us know and we'll be happy to get you through that. And if that doesn't answer your question, at the end, I'd be happy to go through and show you a little bit more of that. The other thing I wanted to bring up, because it is rapidly approaching, is the ITEEA conference. We're in Dallas this year. And if you want to end up on the official cover for the conference program here, all you got to do is stand behind this guy with the glasses, and you'll see me. But this is out to show you what we have for the conference coming up. You'll also see workshops for engineering by design. I'm leading at least one, probably 2 by the end, but we'll be there with a booth also to answer your questions. But it's always a great conference. We always have a good time, and there's some really good speakers this year. So a little shout out to that. If you have any questions, please, again, let us know. So what I really wanted to bring up today is something that's kind of, we hint around the edges a lot about this within the curriculum, within what we do, but we don't talk about it explicitly a lot, and I think it gets glossed over when we do talk about it because we need to, and that's using data in your classroom. Not the stuff your principal talks about, but having the students actually take a look at data and use that to inform their decision making, use that to analyze what they've created and things of that nature. So the students using this information, and this is just something I grabbed off the internet just for the purposes of this presentation, but this is just a quarterly survey of how much real estate costs in Manhattan. And there's a lot of data here, and somebody like me really loves this stuff, and I can read it, and I'm happy in this. But your students are going to look at this cross-eyed, and most people are. But if you break it down visually, it's pretty simple. As we progress in year, the average price goes up. And getting students to get from this point where it's a little bit difficult to really wrap their head around to this point is something that is sometimes missed because it's a complicated topic and the kids' eyes glaze over the second you mention, hey, we're going to talk about data today and graphing. They're not excited about it. So everybody's seen this, I hope, our engineering design process. We have defined the problem, brainstorm ideas, explore solutions, generate a solution, and test and evaluate. And the two things that aren't mentioned on here are their engineering design journals and notebooks and collecting and analyzing data. It's not explicitly stated. And I remember when I was teaching middle and high school, the design journal was one of the most difficult, the engineering notebook was the most difficult thing to get the students to do and to buy into and to see why it's important to not only write that information down, but keep it, and then to take the data that they collected and use it in a way that is useful to what they're doing. And if you ask most tech ed students what they really like about the class, it's they like building, they like designing things, they like solving problems, but I doubt a lot of them are saying, we really love writing in our engineering notebooks, we really love collecting and analyzing data, and we really love the presentations you guys make us do at the end. Those are the things that the students in general are not going to be as excited about as you're going through this. But going back to our, going back to our graph, and I apologize for the resolution, getting students to be able to take the data that they gathered during this whole process and graphing it visually is a really good way of getting these students to see their problem a little bit differently. It's not just, hey, it worked or it didn't work. And especially when you get into larger projects where you're talking about where does this bridge break? Why is it breaking at that point? And being able to graph things like how much is that bridge flexing before it breaks to really see how much as you add each pound or add each whatever unit you're using, how much is that bridge flexing before it breaks, and what does that look like graphically to see what the stresses on that bridge actually are. And that's something that isn't done a lot. It's something that as a teacher I didn't use a lot when I was still in the classroom, and looking back at something I think the students could have gotten a lot more out of. And I think that this is something that it's hard to put it in a little bubble on this screen and say data should be here and analyzing that data should be in this particular place because it's all over. And we talk about it throughout the design process. We talk about decision making and decision matrices when we are brainstorming ideas, and we tell the students that this is a good way to quantitatively decide which of your proposed solutions or your proposed designs are good and appropriate given all the criteria and constraints that you have. But we don't talk about it in a data context. We just kind of give them this matrix and say, here, this is how you calculate it, but not give them how can you expand that to larger projects, and how does this work when you look at larger data sets. And I think if we get them to look at these topics, things like data, the words that are hard to get students engaged about, and they're hard to get adults engaged in. These are things that we can really show them, not just how you use this information in a technology education class or an engineering class, but how do you view these large data sets in general, and how are they used? And the reason I really wanted to bring this up today was as more and more information is collected and given online, more and more data is being gathered and used. And we talk about technological literacy and having students understand how the information that we're giving them can be spread across other disciplines, other things in life. And data is one of them, and we have an opportunity to, in technology education and in engineering education, to give them a practical use for this information and show them how it can be applied elsewhere. And no matter what kind of job they're going to have, no matter what they're doing, they're going to have to use, hopefully, they're going to have to use some data to make decisions and to inform what their next step should be. So bringing this in just simply in the decision matrix in this beginning is great, but then every step of this, bringing that data back and showing how we can take that written data, we can look at it graphically and say, how is this process happening? How is, when this bridge breaks, where is that happening and where can we adjust to compensate for that? How do we know that too much stress has been placed on it so we can go in, modify it, and make that bridge stronger the next time? And as we go through and using this data and using spreadsheets and using Excel, we can really show the students a deeper level of what these projects that we're doing in the classroom are and what they can do as far as modification, as far as improvement, and where do they know how exactly to modify and how exactly to improve. And using these larger concepts of data and of analyzing and of graphs, we can really bring a deeper understanding to what the students are getting out of our courses, more than just, hey, I made a bridge, it broke, it was fun, I had a good time. But now they can understand, now I can graph that, I can see exactly where it broke, I can see exactly where that point of no return was when I'm going to add stuff and it's going to bend and deflect at even greater angles before it breaks, and we can test and measure that, and those students can really see in real time how to use that data. And it's just something, again, that I see as a former teacher, and I see as I do trainings, as I talk to teachers now, this is something that they struggle bringing in, and it's a tough topic to get students engaged and involved in, because it's writing, it's math, it's spreadsheets, it's not building and designing and brainstorming and working with my friends. It seems a more daunting task to both the student, but it's a daunting task to the teacher as well to be able to bring that type of instruction into the class, because we like to see engaged kids, and we have fewer behavioral issues when we do that. I'm going to pull the screen back here for a minute, if I can figure this out. There we go. Does anybody have any specific experiences using data in the classroom, using graphs, using Excel or any other kind of program to do this? It'd be nice to have both positive and negative, so we could kind of get a little bit of a dialogue going rather than me just yakking at my screen here. But has anybody used that? And I'm in the chat here. I've got a message. It's really nice when kids use math to justify the design prior to modeling. I 100% agree. If they can use that data or what they can project beforehand, absolutely bring it in. The students it helps with prediction, estimation. There's quite a few things that translate mostly to math that using that prior to the modeling can really help with. I don't, without having that exposure previously, I don't know how you would bring that in without having done it. So I think that, kind of that first time, it might be a kind of after, let's go through this, and then now, hey, remember last time we built that bridge and we did this data, now what do you think is going to happen based on what you have, and then model. Yeah, if you want to, Mike, if you want to share out, I'd love it here. I don't know if I lost him. Mike, just jump in if your mic gets working there.
Okay. My mic working now?
Oh, yeah, now you go. There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Mike Fitzgerald, Department of Ed, and I want to welcome everybody and thank you for attending this WebEx. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to provide some support to the teachers across the U.S. Also want to make a shout out to Mary. Hi, Mary. Just because Mary is a fellow Hoosier and I'm a recovering Hoosier, so there you go. Basically what I wanted to share is I used to use a formula out of the Center for Implementing Technology Education out of Ball State, and it was a formula that was done by Patty Farrar. I'd have to look it up if I wanted to share it with you all. But the bottom line was it was a modeling formula you use for structures, for bridges or towers, you know, what have you. And what you could do is you could validate a design on paper by calculating the number of vertices, the number of members, and the number of joints in a structural design to prove or disprove if it was structurally stable. And so what I used to do is I would use that formula, teach that math to the kids on the front end, and then I'd go ahead and basically force the students to use mathematics to prove or disprove their ideas when they're going through the ideation process. And so that really worked out really nice because as opposed to kids coming to me and saying, you know, look, this is what I want to make, they would come to me and they'd say, you know, this mathematically proves that it should be stable, therefore I want to model this to see if it, you know, if I can compare and contrast it to come up with a solution that actually meets the mathematical model. So that would be one example that I used to use, and I can probably pull that resource and share it with all if you were to reach me via email sometime at mike.fitzgerald@doe.k12.de.us. But anyways, I can share that with everybody if you wanted that kind of a resource to use when you're doing structural engineering type stuff. Another example where I was using math as a modeling tool prior to kids actually making physical models is where I would have kids doing projects with, say, catapults. And there's several catapult simulators online that you can go ahead and download, install, and use. And basically what you can do is you can have kids design and build, you know, in a simulation space a model catapult. They can then go ahead and test it you know, in the virtual space, and then you can turn around and have the kids actually make the real thing and do a compare and contrast, you know, through data collection. So those are two examples that I used to use that you could easily, you know, incorporate into your instruction. And like I said, if you want more information on that kind of stuff, just simply contact me, and I'll see if I can pull up those resources and share out with all.
Excellent. I appreciate that, Mike. The key to a lot of this is knowing your audience, of course. You know, where I taught, especially when we did structural modeling and building bridges and towers and whatnot, that type of analysis and prediction would be a little bit advanced, but for a high school class, certainly. It's well within what their abilities hopefully should be, but
well, I would counter by saying I did the middle school, so it's not beyond the possibility of middle school kids. It's all about doing the scaffolding, support the students prior to them doing it. So it can be done in middle school.
No, you're absolutely yeah, and I didn't mean to imply they can't. Just that they you know, being able to build that up from, you know, don't just throw here's this advanced modeling procedure and we want you to do this and shock them from the initial go. Is what I was getting at, but thank you.
No, what I used is a lot of pre-teaching of the formulas so they knew what they were, how to use them, with several examples so they could practice themselves, and then they would actually, you know, use them themselves. But anyways, very good. Continue.
Thank you. I'm also looking at Kane's tracking for wind power and generator project. That's an excellent way to do it. I've used that one as well, so they can see as the speed increases, the voltage did. You also said you used it for tracking with the ping pong ball launcher and the crane steering results. What kind of issues or things that you kind of learn through that process that could help teachers better implement that? Were there any kind of lessons learned that you would have done differently or you improved as you taught it the next time? And Mike was your actual middle school teacher? That's and we're just waiting for, I think I see Kane typing. As Mike and Kane have both said, being able to bring in this data and being able to use information and modeling before or during the design process, the beginning parts, as they're designing whatever, if it's a structure or if it's another type of project, can get them in that habit of using that instead of just at the end, hey, here's what we did, and report out. And that's often what gets missed as they go through and create an engineering design notebook. What I see a lot, even among college students, is they go through all of this design process. They go through the testing, the prototyping, and then they go back and they write up how they actually designed it rather than doing it beforehand or in real time. So it tends to identically match what they created when it really shouldn't if they're truly refining it. And Kane said that the ping pong ball helped them to track which area of the court their launcher was most accurate. And oops, it changed on me. And when they do the final test, they know where to spend most of their time. And for those not familiar with it, if you haven't seen Kane set up, it's kind of like, if I remember correctly, it's a basketball court type setup, and where they shoot it from, there's point values assigned, so they know where to place their catapult or their ping pong ball launcher for the final challenge. Is that correct? Cool. He says yes. And on the back end, he's using statistics and analysis from those repeated trials to show if improvements can be made and if they're actually going to be powerful and useful. So thank you, both of you, for sharing out that. I appreciate it. So I wanted to get to some of the questions that were specifically brought up, and some of the things that were sent to myself or Jenny prior to this, and then any questions you have, I'm happy to go through, and there's a few others that can step in and answer them if they are specific questions I can't get to, or we will get you the answers as soon as we can, and if I can't answer. So the first thing that was asked was about rubrics, and some of it was about consistency among or across different curricula and across different projects, if I read that correctly. We're always trying to improve what we have out there, and we're continually doing that, and this is one of those areas as well. The big question I think we have, and I have, is what kind of rubrics are best for you? Is there a better rubric that works better in your class, or that a group of you have said, yeah, this works really well. This one could be adjusted so that we can put that in as we're going through and revising it. But you know, those kind of suggestions, you know, if you say, hey, lesson 1, the rubric was this, and lesson 2, the rubric was this, and I think the lesson 1 was better, and I think it'd be better if we had whatever category or wording or phrasing in lesson 2, and so on. Those kind of suggestions really help us to refine and have better materials for you going forward. And if we can get specifics, especially the more detailed, I guess, the better. But just knowing what you want and how to best suit your needs in the classroom, because you guys are the ones using this. This is for you. So where we get our information comes directly from you, and we want to adjust and make it better for you. So if there's a specific one that there's an issue with, or you want changed, or would like changed, I should say, please let us know. As far as consistency, you know, that's something that we definitely are striving towards, and we have been. And these revisions take some time, and they're done by you know, several people. So occasionally stuff doesn't quite gel as if it was written by one person, and that's part of this, you know, continually revising what we're doing and, you know, applying our own design process to it, if you were. So if there's anything like that, please feel free to give us some comments and feedback. I'm going to skip the lab setup one because I got to leave this screen. The same thing goes for course improvements. As far as you know, FoT is we've been through that. We've just revised FoT, so that's pretty stable for right now as we go forward and make, you know, move on to focusing on some of the others. And there is a difference sometimes between them and how much development has happened on them. FoT is the one I'm very familiar with. I've worked with the ED curriculum as well, but FoT is kind of where I've spent the last year. So speaking for the other curricula, I can't as well as I'm sure you would like, but we are going through and revising those and updating those as resources allow. So as FoT is you know, developed, we'll get to everything else and just keep revising as that process unfolds going forward. Videos to support or replace PowerPoint, and I'm going to read the actual text because I like it better than when I wrote summarizing it. But it was that the mode of media was more conducive to this generation's learning. I totally agree. PowerPoints are not the greatest teaching tool ever developed, as I can attest from my one slide and talking over it today. So I'm not sure on this what the plan is. That has to get answered by people higher than me. If there are resources that are out there that you use or things that we can develop and to augment our PowerPoints, we're happy to take a look and see what we can do with them. If you go on the Buzz site, and I'll go there in a minute, there are links to external videos in the resources tab. So we try to bring those in as we find them. The biggest struggle is, you know, the web isn't static, so we'll have a link up there, we'll have permission to use it, then they redesign the website and the link doesn't work anymore. And we've gone through and fixed some of those, but that's going to be a continual issue as long as they're housed somewhere else like YouTube or an individual company's site. But it is something that I think not just engineering by design, but in general, we are trying to find different modes to communicate information to our students. That's a little bit more, I like the wording, conducive to what they're used to and what's engaging for them. The other, and feel free to ask questions on any of those as well, and I can try and provide a little bit more detail.
Hey, Dan?
Yeah.
If I could jump in real quickly.
Absolutely. You would be the one to respond to some of this.
Yeah, so one of the things, the ideas that we've tossed around and we're looking at piloting, and maybe, Mike, this might be something that your teachers might be interested in joining, and we will certainly extend that beyond to other participants if you're interested once we get this up and running. We're thinking of using the EbD Buzz platform as one more opportunity for smaller kinds of PLC, professional learning communities to come together, possibly doing like one large one for example, all FoT users with discussion forums and threads on different topics. So it may be that if you find resources that are helpful and you want to share those amongst yourselves, it wouldn't necessarily be something that we build into the master copy of the course and then that trickles down to all the derivative copies. It may instead be something that if your school allows you to use particular types of videos, then maybe there's a list of helpful videos per lesson and per unit. Things of that nature that don't necessarily become part of the curriculum per se, but we do want to be able to provide a location for a community to kind of work together in that capacity. Additionally, if there are certain lessons that you think could be improved with certain types of videos, I'm thinking very much in the abstract right now, but I'm sure that you all are probably thinking more specifically about certain lessons and certain PowerPoints that might be transitioned into videos, if I'm hearing that correctly. Those are all the kinds of things that we're happy to discuss further, maybe not here online right now, but I'd be happy to hear from you. So I see a comment that, where'd it go? The community forum idea, if it's a place where resources can be shared. Yeah, and we wouldn't necessarily, we would have to be really careful, you know, about ground rules and sort of disclaimers because there are plenty of examples of what we can't put out there to the world and say this is an EbD product. We just have to be really careful about that. But we do want to be able to provide a community space for FoT teachers, for example. So if you have thoughts about that, I would love to hear from you. And I'm right now going to go back into the chat. I put Mike's email address in there because he said it to you. I put it up a little earlier in the conversation. So I'll add mine as well for curriculum and PD questions. And then also up in the chat a little earlier, when we were talking about Buzz, I included the email address to directly contact EbD Buzz Tech Support. So if you have an access question or a question about how to do something, then that would be your first point of contact. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Thanks, Dan.
The one I wanted to skip, I want to give here with a caveat that I promise that I have not been paid for every time I direct you to ITEEA's website, but I want to do that again. And the reason is there's always questions as far as laboratory setup, and there's no way in any capacity that any group can say, this is how to set up a lab, because there are so many different variables to each individual classroom, each individual student, teacher. There's just too many variables to do that. But the one thing that is consistent that we can continually harp on is safety. And this is the part where I promise I'm not paid to do this. In the technology and engineering teacher journal, we have the safety spotlight, and this is something just to kind of bring light, shed light on things that people don't always think about, and this particular issue we're talking about, overcrowding in the classrooms. I was fortunate enough to have a large classroom, and I was absolutely capped at 20 students. In one school, in another school, I had 32, trying to work with saws and machinery, and it's a completely different environment when you add 10 or 15 students.
Dan, are you screen sharing right now?
I thought I was. Am I not?
I don't think so. I think
I screwed it up. Hang on. I think.
turned it off and then.
There it is. Is that it?
Yep, got it.
All right, I apologize. This is what I was trying to show you. And it's on, if you are an ITEEA member, you can get this publication here, and it's all digital. But we talk about, or the article, and we as an organization talk about just best practices, what you can bring to your school administration or district administration to talk about issues like this if you are having issues. But this is just things to think about, and this is being offered regularly so that you have an idea of what safety issues you might not be thinking about. But in general, as far as lab setup, there's as long as the students can move around safely, the equipment can be stored safely, and it's neat. Beyond those safety concerns and just basic, you know, teaching your students how to use things, have a check-in, check-out system, have a training procedure where the students have to take a test, and certain, you know, rules as far as safety glasses and gloves if necessary, protective equipment, closed-toed shoes. It's very, very difficult outside of those to give recommendations without specifics as far as lab setup. But I know I would be happy to speak with anybody directly and address any particular concerns or questions they have, as well as I'm sure other NTECs and EbD staff. So just to kind of help you go along, I'm sure for those of you in Delaware, Mike Fitzgerald is a great resource for that. He's experienced and he's much more familiar with what you have to work with than I would be. So, you know, using those type of resources would be your best bet for that. And I think if I go back to, there we go. Questions from you. What do you, what questions do you have that either I didn't address or anybody else that stepped in, or things to clarify from what I've said here? And I'm trying to get back to my screen here, so I can't see anything at the moment. There we go. The other thing we really want to, if anybody's typing, or feel free to speak up, to ask you is what types of topics you would like to have covered in greater detail in these types of webinar trainings going forward. What can we provide you with that that will help you, you know, improve instruction, facilitate instruction, support? What can we do for you? If anybody has anything as far as topics we can put together in the future.
Yes, we do have a couple more of these scheduled for this semester, and so while of course we want to cover FoT topics and hit the curriculum specifically, but we also want to make this as customized as possible to answer your questions and meet your needs. So if you're able to share the kinds of questions, if you have questions about, I think I saw something about lab setups, we might want to talk about that a little bit more in depth next time or the time after. So any of these sorts of questions, specifically emailed. And I just saw a message, if you run into an issue with the curriculum, you can email me directly and I will put the curriculum team on it and we'll get that fixed in the master copy, and that will automatically show up in your copy, your course copy in Buzz. We're also working right now, in the next few weeks, you will see the release of our support system help desk. So this is an advanced feature for our current technical support team. You'll be able just to click a help desk button and You'll have some drop-down choices for the kind of problem that you might be experiencing, and one of those options will be an issue with the curriculum. So like Dan mentioned, if we have an external link in the course and then that link has changed, so it's not working for you, then you can just send us a quick message through the help desk support ticket, and we'll be able to go directly to that space in the course, take care of it, and it will show up in your current copy. But for now, you can email me directly.
Okay, and there's a couple other, I got a couple privately here. Have there been any updates to the testing platform? There were not many ways to analyze the data, export it for the pre-test. Any changes coming for that going forward? I can't answer that one. Jenny, do you have any?
I'm sorry, can you read me that one again?
Sorry, I was reading. Have there been any updates to the testing platform, and are there ways to analyze and export the data, or is that in the works or not?
Yes, your, let me go over here. You are able to export your data as it stands in Buzz. We are developing additional features, and I don't know, Anita is our Director of Assessment, and Anita Dept, if she's still online with us, she may want to jump in and speak to that question as well. But we are developing a more granular way of working with this data, so you'll be able, as we move forward throughout the next few months, you'll have access to more granular data in terms of particular questions and standards met. So you'll be able to see what students are doing in terms of each standard as you move through the course. What else to say about that? It was on the tip of my tongue. I'll think of it in a minute.
The response I got was, yay, thank you. So,
you also be able to maximize on what Buzz has to offer, and that's only going to grow. We are working also in the next release of FoT. It's not a full-scale revision, so it's not going to change up too much, but just some small improvements with the next copy, which I suspect for the fall is when you'll see this in action, but you'll have access to it a little sooner. There will be smaller formative assessments throughout the course. So once you set your students up to take the pre-assessment, this is still very much a teacher guide. This is not an online course for students, but since you've already set them up to access the pre-assessment, we're also building in some formative assessments for the units that your students will be able to access. And so, of course, they're self-grading, and you'll have access to all of that data as well.
Paul, I'm reading your question here. Are you able to jump on a microphone and clarify a little bit what you're looking for?
Yeah, I had a typo with it. I was looking for the ITEEA website and where the Buzz links are and access to more of this curriculum. Will you be sending us an email so we have the links?
So we can as far as what I showed there as far as the resources, is that what you're looking for?
Yes, well, I can go back and look at some of these things when I'm at my computer at the school.
Absolutely. In fact, I can email it, or I can link it here. I don't have email addresses to send that, so somebody else would would have to do it. I can link the that link in chat, and if you're able to copy that, would that work for you?
That'd be great.
Okay.
Hello, this is Anita. I was just sorry about that. I had my phone on mute, and I was also muted there. So I was just going to jump in and say that the feedback that you give us is very valuable as far as the technical aspect of it. That helps guide what you want whenever, especially like, you know, the disaggregated data, looking at it at the student level. That sort of thing helps us build a better system. So, you know, anything that you have like that, you know, we will try to address it. And, you know, if there's an overall from a lot of different people an overall question about something or what you would like to see in the system, and we will see if we can try to make that happen.
Okay, I got a couple other messages, and I want to put it out to all of you if these sound like things that going forward we can provide in these webinar and professional development forums here. One of them is sources for ordering materials and supplies. I know we have a supply list, but help, where to order them, what vendors are out there. If that's something that is that people struggle with. I know when I first started ordering materials, it was a pretty daunting task to get everything and get the correct numbers and all the information I needed for the schools. The other one was how to access and use student assessment data, how to read the data, what all of that means as far as using data from your class to improve your instruction, not just what we were talking about before. Is there a feeling by those of you participating here that those two things would be something to cover that would be beneficial to you? I wish there was a way to poll here. I don't know how to do that. Okay, getting a couple of yeses here. And while you guys are, if you're typing, I did see from Kane that the FoT it appears to be pretty well developed, but specifically the ED and ADA curriculums, he would like to see some improvement too. So, and as I said, we are continually revising and updating our materials to get you the best, but feedback really helps to know what you guys need in the field.
Yes, and I just made a note, completed revisions to ADA and ED are actually in our programmer's hands right this very minute. We've got a new lesson on surveying that's coming out in ADA. That's part of the construction unit, if I remember correctly. We've got a material science piece that's on its way to us for ED. Now that's not immediately available, but it's coming very soon. And we've combed through these courses, done a lot of cleanup and organization, and lots of improvements are headed out to you in the next couple of months. We've been very busy with a lot of curriculum revision lately, so you'll see some changes soon.
I also got, and I think this one is definitely something that would be really useful in general to you out in the field that are ordering equipment and trying to figure out what to get, but equipment that is actually useful rather than flashy. And we see this all the time, people buying 3D printers and laser cutters and CNC machines, but are they actually doing something with them in the classroom? 3D printing's, I think, the biggest one right now, the current fad, everybody's getting them, but there's a lot of them collecting dust, and I think that would be an excellent thing to discuss and an excellent topic to bring up as to what kind of equipment is actually useful for your students, and do you have to spend a fortune trying to get the latest and greatest, and is that the best the best equipment to use? And 3D printing is, like I said, that's about the perfect example of that. Most things could be CNC cut faster and cheaper than you can ever 3D print them. So things like that are definitely helpful, and that's a great suggestion. Also, different methods for formal and informal checks for understanding. In this area especially, seeing whether students are understanding at each step of that design process, so that if they make a mistake at the beginning, that's not translated through the entire project. Certainly is something that whether you're new to this or experienced or anywhere in between, something that I think everybody can use more tips and methods to do that. So we'll definitely take a look at that as well.
So we've got about 5 minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that in addition to the Q&A, we just put out there that we need to determine the date for the next session. And we also would really love to hear back from you, like I said, so that we can customize this PD and address your questions and concerns about using this curriculum specifically in your classroom. We want it to be big enough and flexible enough to meet the needs on a national, actually international scale, but we also want to make it work for you. So, so having this sort of customized PD is really, I think, beneficial. So we can throw out some dates right now if you guys in Delaware are looking at your calendars, or we can send out a poll and try to get that back from everybody in the next few days. What are your thoughts on that? You could type it into the chat or unmute and just share.
Hi, this is Mike. I think for Delaware teachers, what I need to do is do a poll. I think that'd be best. We've captured most of my teachers, but I see we're missing a few, so I would like to invite them to the next meeting. So that is my suggestion for the Delaware teachers. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So then we'll put a poll together. We'll ask a couple of questions about content, and we'll throw out a couple of potential dates. All right?
And if anybody has any additional topics you'd like to hear, please email us or contact us in any other way to let us know, so we can, as Jenny said, get something out there that best helps you and the broader community in general.
Okay, well, then if there are no other questions for Dan or for Anita or for me, I want to thank you all once again for joining us this afternoon. We will certainly send out information about the next one once the date is determined. If you have not yet registered for the conference, please go ahead and jump online and take care of that, because we really do want to see you all there. We'll be doing quite a few EbD sessions, and you can go ahead and take a look. Dan shared the link for the conference program at a glance with a whole lot of that information already available online. So go ahead and register if you haven't, and we'll send out this archive, the link, the information, and information for next time around very shortly. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.
And again, thank you all for coming and sitting through this, and let us know if you have any additional questions. Everybody should have my email. But thank you.
Thanks, Dan.